All right, everybody. I think, okay, we're live
Okay.
now. So
Let me
welcome
check I'm
everybody.
right, because I know this
I'm really
computer is pretty
excited
slow.
yeah, no worries. So welcome everybody. I'm really excited for the opportunity here today. Jan, and I want to make sure, am I pronouncing your name right by saying Jan? Make sure I've got that correct.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
I'm just gonna make one quick adjustment here. Should be good to go. Okay, so Jan has graciously given us the opportunity here to really Jan is going to be the client today in what we would call a deep coaching session. So the methodology of deep coaching comes from a coach who's a dear friend of mine named Leon Vanderpol. And he has created this methodology of coaching, which I've gotten certified in, and I've had a chance to run programs with as well. And so, thanks to Jan, the community at large is going to get to experience Jan is going to get to experience this coaching, and also the greater community is as well. So, Jan, anything you just want to share about yourself, with folks who might be checking in on the call or catching this on the replay?
So yeah, I can share a couple things. I've came across No More Mr. Nice Guy about 5 years ago now. Done a lot of coaching since then, and yeah, the book has really changed my life, and definitely feel that I feel like there's a lot more still to learn, but feel so far that it's helped me a lot.
Awesome. And yeah, I mean, I think really that's great. We had a chance to have a discussion beforehand, just to kind of get a sense of where you're at in life and what you've been up to. I think the cool thing here is like this is the first time that we've actually got to be in conversation together before. In the past, we've connected through the group that I run, but like we've never actually got to have a face-to-face conversation, even like this virtually. And I think this really speaks to the power of both connection and just the opportunity that's here. Two people coming into a space together to create, together. So awesome, Jan. So what I'm going to invite you to do is just turn off your camera here. So at the bottom, there's the stop cam button.
All right.
Hopefully that'll also speed up our feed as well. Yeah, I can see it there. Okay, so you're back. Anyways, okay, so folks, as a part of a deep coaching session, what we actually do is we turn off our cameras. Obviously, when I'm working with clients, generally they get to choose whether they want to stay on camera or not. But for this, we're going to practice without the camera. And the idea here is that really, without having to make eye contact or any of those sort of elements of just being in conversation together, we get to sort of expand on our senses and really just connect to the space that's around us. So yeah, really looking forward to sharing this experience with you, Jan. So the first thing I'm going to do is just invite us into a bit of grounding or meditation, just to create the space. So just for both of us to settle in and take a breath and release that breath, and take in one more breath and release that breath. Just welcome us both into this space. Really want to just acknowledge you for being open to having a conversation around the creation of your life, and just allow for any negative thoughts, feelings, experiences, just allow those to fade away so that there can be an opening for connection, creation, possibility. And just know that this space is your space in our conversation, your space to explore, to create, to just look at, and know that anything that you share or bring to the conversation is perfectly okay. There's no right way of doing this.
Sounds good.
And the last thing I'll just invite us both to is just being connected to spirit, universe, whatever feels like a higher power, higher calling for both of us, that we get to be connected to one another, but also that there's a universal power that can guide us and support us and uplift us in this conversation. Feel that energy. And take in one more breath. Allow that breath to just sink a little lower into your body. And when you're ready, feel free to share what it is that you'd like to explore or experience in our conversation together.
Okay, so there's a couple things I like to explore. Like I said earlier, I've done a lot of coaching over the past years. Really invested quite heavily, in myself by following courses, by following coaching. And, I've been looking for really trying to find, that place where I can find my own stability, find my own grounding, almost, so to say, like, both in my job as also in relationship. When it comes to relationship, I had a breakup this year that really affected me, also exposed several things within me, and I'm trying to address these, but at the same time, there's a desire or part of me that wants this stable relationship, this call it loyal girlfriend, and then just a stable job where I can be financially stable, really just to start building on my future.
Yeah. So there's a desire for stability, and what I hear is really opportunity as well, right? A deepening of relationship, an expansion of your job, your career as well. So I hear those elements,
Yeah.
Those desires that are there. And so where are you at now when it comes to the pursuit of these things? What are you present to?
So, I'll just share a little bit what I'm doing presently. I have a part-time job that is working from home, online, remotely. Next to that, also due to some feedback I've gotten last year, I also want to meet more people in person, which is one reason I started taxi driving, next to getting a little bit of an extra paycheck in. I'm volunteering. I wanted, like, I live in a small apartment and I like animals. So I wanted animals back in my life, which is why I started volunteering at the local animal shelter. I'm really I'm at the moment, I'm also getting back into some hobbies that I've, I had those hobbies, but didn't really do anything with that. And I'm getting back into that too. Really letting my creative side expand again, really get that to flourish again, because that's been lacking over the past years. Also, partly due to maybe my apartment being small, but at the same time, I was looking now to expand again, and just not let space be limited. Just what the space I have, just let my creative spirit let it flourish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, and just one thing, Jan, just for our conversation, you may find that there's moments where there's silence, and it could just be from the internet connection kind of thing. So if you don't hear me talking right away, just know that I'm listening as much as possible, and I'll chime in when I can. So, okay. So, and you're speaking to something there, right? Like you want to let your creative spirit really start to flourish. And where do you see the connection between, the creativity and those areas that you want to grow into, the relationship, the career, getting, a home. Yeah, where do you see the connection between the creativity and those elements?
I really so I'm just switching to my phone here for a moment because I think my phone will be a little bit more stable than my computer. So give me 1 sec here. All right, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Perfect. I think my phone is a little bit more stable. My computer is pretty slow. It's a little bit too light of a computer, so I think this will work better.
Yeah,
Can you
no
hear
problem.
me?
Yeah, no, everything seems clear.
Yeah, I think this is better. So I'll use my phone in this case. So yeah, what it says with creative spirit, I think when I'm happier myself with the things I enjoy doing, I think that'll really trickle down into every aspect of my life, like almost like some kind of compound effect. I really noticed last year, for example, when I was taking a sales course, that I kind of enjoyed that, and the two things that really set me back, both in relationships and also in my personal life, was the fact that I was let go of from a job and also had a breakup, and those two things really affected me, and I'm kind of in some ways have to rebuild myself in a lot of ways. And I just found that at that point it was like a turning point for me, being like, okay, no, I want certain things back in my life that I've been pushing back for way too long. And one of those things was, having animals back in my life, volunteering, and also meeting more people in person because I work remotely. So, I find remote work, it has its advantages, but one of the things too, like, you got to keep meeting people in person. So, that's why I also, next to volunteering, started driving taxi just to meet some new people and, really expand my social circle. So yeah, too, in my direct surroundings, not just online.
Right. And so, the that expansion of creativity that you're seeing there is like, you're already doing it, right? Like one through, volunteering with the SPCA, one through networking, creating connections. Now, if we go back to the place that you're desiring to create into, what I'm just actually going to sit with this for a second, because what is it that you actually desire when it comes to, let's even start from the big picture, right? Like when you look at the life that you want to create over the long term, like what would be sort of like a defining statement, or just that, like what is it that you're really wanting to create in your life?
That's a good question. I'm going to give you a little background story on that, because I've done some coaching last year too. And one of the things that the guy asked me to create was like what he called a morning formula, or, it's almost like a vision board. Like, where do you see yourself within 10 years? What do you want? What do you need to do for that? In that was some gratefulness practice, like, okay, include some pictures or some things in the past that you've done in the past that you're proud of. And next to that, like, next to that morning formula, one of the things that I'm also doing every morning now is a 10-minute meditation. And that really, one of the things that another coach told me was that you should think bigger. Because thinking bigger, you probably heard the saying, think big and grow rich. I'm starting to believe more and more in that. So, definitely morning meditations and going through that morning formula vision board each day help me to really expand and get clear on what I want. And if there's a couple things that I can say what I want in the future, that's definitely financial stability, being able to travel where I want to, whenever I want to. And yeah, when it comes to like a house, I have an agricultural background. My father was a farmer's son. I've lived on a hobby farm for a number of years, and I really feel like the one of the things that my house needs to have is some land where I can have maybe some animals and have a hobby farm basically. But the house itself needs to be big enough because another hobby that I also have are model trains. So I find I want to have a house that has a room that's big enough for a model train layout.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So, I hear some of these areas that, you would be important to you. And again, one piece that you actually didn't speak to was the relationship part.
Right.
Anything you want to speak to there?
Sure. I'm gonna share something now. That it's not something I'm proud of. But I've never been in a long-term relationship. All relationship I've had, there were three of them, and they basically only lasted like 2 or 3 months.
Hmm.
And I am looking for that steady girlfriend, that I can eventually marry and have kids with. I've read the book How to Be a 3% Man by Corey Wayne. There's an exercise in there that I've done. I've actually put that exercise, I've written it down and put it on my phone to go over it also every day with my morning formula vision board. That reminds me, okay, what am I looking for in a girlfriend? What is it that I'm not looking for? Applying that in practice, that's the second question. Like, saying is one thing, but doing it is the other thing.
Right. Yeah, and thanks for sharing. Thanks for just, really painting the picture of what's been. And so what really just point blank, what I hear is that there is a desire to be married, to have kids in the future. And, that's a part of this visioning process that you're doing. So, it's clear that you've done some work around the visioning, that this has been a part of your process. And um, you know, without getting too far ahead of ourselves, really just that, okay, so you've done this work, you've got coaching, you see sort of the future that you want to create. Um, and what would be really helpful for us to explore in our conversation today?
That's a good question. I've been thinking about that, and one of the things I still struggle with is, because I know several things that make me happy, but when it comes to like the job side of things, like I'm looking around for jobs, because the job that I currently have online, I've gotten several extensions on my probation period already, but I'm not sure if that's going to continue on going. I've sent out several applications in the meantime, but I'm struggling to find that, call it that job, or that the thing that will generate me income that will make me happy on the long term. Like people say, you got to do what you love. And I'm always struggling to find like, okay, what is it that I love? That's a question I keep having by myself. And sometimes I get clearer on that, sometimes I get less clear on that. It seems to go up and down in both ways, so to say.
Hmm. Yeah. So I hear, just from what you just shared there, that there is you were in this process of finding a fulfilling, career. And, it sounds like potentially you haven't quite landed there yet, but and so like you're in that process. And there is also this other factor of we got to be able to generate income.
Right.
That, actually, if I kind of take a step back, it sounds like, there's a desire to find that fulfilling career, that thing that really, lights you up. And in the space as well is, well, it has to create income for me.
Right. Right.
So what do you just notice about that, in terms of like, on one side of the scale, we'll call it, is like there is a desire for purpose, there's a desire for a career that's meaningful, and on the other side of it is, it's got to be able to produce a livelihood, it's got to be able to produce income.
Mm-hmm.
How has that directed the decisions you've made to this point in terms of creating what you want for a career?
That's a good question. I feel, or how am I gonna say this? Like, well, let's circle back. Like, I've done several jobs in the meantime. The sales thing that I'm doing right now really came from like a job coach. He said, for your personal development, you should get into sales. For a number of years, and which I did, and definitely taught me a lot. Credits to him for letting me do that. But I've several interests, several things that I like. One of those things are trains. The other things are animals. When it comes to the animal side of things, I studied animal sciences. That was my secondary degree. And when I first graduated, I was actually a little disappointed in what kind of jobs I'd be entering in. I had a different expectation than what actually came to be. Mm-hmm. So, to say it very concrete, to put it very concretely, I was expecting to be more outdoors on the farm. But it turned out that most of the jobs that, after I would have studied, ended up being jobs in the office, which was the last thing I wanted. So about 5 years ago, I got a job opportunity which made me move to Canada. I'm from Holland originally. And yeah, I actually got a job, that was in my field where I had studied for. Again, that didn't work out. So, the next thing that I did, which I also enjoyed to a certain degree, was I drove semi-truck for 2 years. Because I like driving. So I did that, but then, it was about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, that I was driving somewhere and something just hit me, and pardon my words here, but almost literally, the question that popped up at me was like, listen, what the fuck do you want to do with your life? And that was like, it hit me so hard that I basically, had to park the truck for half an hour, sit down with a cup of coffee to get my mind straight again. And, that's when I started the job coaching, which lasted a year. And that ended up going into like, okay, then I need to do sales for a couple of years. So that's what I'm doing right now. But how long I see myself doing it, I don't know. A big advantage of my current part-time job online is that the working environment is very nice. I have a very nice sales team that I work with. The people in general are very nice. And it's a completely different field that I work in right now. I work for a fitness software company. And it's a product I stand behind with. So, that really makes a difference in, if you sell something that you are convinced about, then it makes it a lot better to promote that and put it out there. So the doubt currently is I enjoy this team. I stand behind the product that I'm selling. The question is whether I will be able to find fulfillment in this long term. And I mentioned a couple things that I'm interested in. So yeah, the next question is, what do I do with that?
It's a great question. Truly of what do you do with that, Jan?
Hmm.
Where do you go from here?
Right. And that's indeed a question I have right now. Where do I go from here?
Hmm.
You know, to a very, on the short term, I know within a couple weeks whether my contract, my probation period will be extended again or not. Yeah, and that'll determine where I'm going to go from here. Also considering the fact that working remotely has its advantages, but also its disadvantages. And yeah, I mean that's um, you know, yeah, it just has its pros and cons, and I'm not sure if I will be able to continue this or not.
Hmm. Well, and it sounds like a gauge of whether you're on the path or not is going back to that time where you were in the truck and assessing what are you actually doing, what
Right.
are you actually moving towards, and if you just use that same mentality with the situation right now, do you feel like you are fully on the path to your purpose, or are you still off the mark?
I think, you know, um, I think I'm not on my purpose yet, because if I would, um, I think, but that is only an assumption. I think I would be happier. I'd be more fulfilled. And I think, you know, and that would show also in who I was to the outside world, which would automatically also trickle down in other aspects of my life.
Hmm.
And
So yeah, go ahead.
I think for every man, having read the books that I've read, ranging from job to dating related, the most important thing for a man is to find his mission, and having that mission taken away from you. Like, one of the worst periods I've had of my life was actually, a couple months ago, when I was unemployed for a good 1.5 months. I basically sent out application after application and nothing came to be. And that really just, yeah, I mean, you didn't have a purpose, and
Hmm.
that didn't feel good for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's totally understandable of being in that position and searching and looking for an opportunity and things not coming to fruition, and what that creates. It's totally understandable. And what I'm present to is that you spoke of the word mission, you know just that, full stop. Does that feel like the place for us to explore for the rest of this conversation, is to really expand on stepping into your mission?
Yeah, that sounds good. Again, I think definitely once I find my true mission, then I'll be able to also, implement that into other aspects of my life, which will trickle down into every other aspect of my life.
Hmm. Yeah, well said. So what, just as a putting it out into the space, like what do you actually feel is your mission or calling in life?
That's a big question, and honestly, I cannot answer that straight away, to be totally honest. You know, a big change that happened in my life, 5 years ago, was the fact that I moved from the Netherlands to Canada. That was a big move. It's been a great choice, though. I really enjoy being here. I've had to learn a lot, which is understandable, but I enjoy it. Yeah, and then now comes the next step. Like, okay, what is my mission? What is my purpose? And yeah, that's a good question, honestly. Yeah, it is.
And sometimes it can be, it's there's a few ways of approaching, what our purpose or calling is. And sometimes it's a matter of just slowing down and not having to get it perfect, but just really sensing into what can I allow it to be.
Right.
And so if you just allowed yourself to explore in this moment what feels like your mission or your legacy on this earth, what comes to you?
Um, hmm. I mean, it'd be too easy to say I don't know. I mean, there's a couple things coming up here. Yeah, I mean, it's. Hmm. I don't know how to say. There's a couple things coming up. Like, it all relates back to the main interest I've had in all my life, which was everything that had wheels, mainly on trains, transport logistics, and on the other side, the animals, mainly focused on agriculture and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And how does it feel to actually like speak that is a part of your mission, your calling, to have those in your life?
I mean, it's always been a part of mine, mainly hobby-wise, but I actually did send out a couple of job applications for the railways. Didn't get a reply back from them. But one of the things that I also had kind of a New Year's resolution for this year was to get back in certain things related to that. I mentioned the SPCA, but one of the things too was I want to start building a train layout because that will allow my creative spirit to let me let that flow. And another part is actually I got a kit for Christmas, a Christmas gift, which is a Lego kit. So I'm building that Lego right now, and I forgot how great fun that was, but I'm having tremendous fun building it. I've enjoyed every minute of it so far.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you get to experience some of that calling, right? You don't get the job position per se, or the position that you had in the past in the agricultural field, where like it would have been more of an administrative role as opposed to being outdoors. So like as I'm sort of just unpacking this, like you don't get those experiences that you want, but then you get sort of the smaller version of it, right? You get the train set or the volunteering role.
Right.
And hey, like you might be okay with that, but it's a place worth checking in with yourself in terms of satisfaction. Like, does that meet the desires that you have of life from this mission, or do you feel like you're settling?
That's a good question. Definitely, that settling versus, having that, going for the highest. I find like, trying to find like, where do I find that balance? Because I do think that there's, um, yeah, one of the models I've actually written down on my New Year's resolution was also like, never settle. And you know, but the other thing is too, like, you don't want to, you got to guard yourself for opportunism, so to say. Take the opportunities as they come, but don't shoot for something that, might be, yeah, I mean, that sounds a little bit stupid, maybe like unrealistic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just to, maybe as a side note, like, one of the jobs I did in the past, um, it wasn't a long term because I had like what they call a 0 hour contract, which is like back in Holland. But I was a laboratory technician for a couple months, and again, something that job had and this online job, they both were a great team, so great people to work with. And the thing I enjoyed about the laboratory work was the fact that it was hands-on, and you were able to see results. That then those results, were it was satisfying to see those results. The same thing with, like I mentioned, now building that Lego kit. You see something, appearing, getting constructed in front of your very eyes, which is very satisfying.
Absolutely. And you pose that question of where do you find the balance between we'll call it realism versus let's unrealistic, in a sense, right? Like
Right.
finding that balance, right? And only you can be the one that can decide that, to be at
Right.
choice of like, yeah, what feels right to you.
Right.
And I mean, actually, if we just sit with that in this moment, I mean, when you look at your mission, your calling, the legacy that you want to create, are you
Mhm.
wanting to be realistic about it, or are you wanting to be unrealistic?
I mean, I get back to that statement, like, think big and grow rich. One thing my father left in a kind of like a farewell letter almost, because he passed away a couple years ago. But one of the things he said too that really stuck with me was, think big, but stay true to yourself and guard yourself for opportunism. And yeah, that really stuck with me. He said, you you can have, your desire, but also ground yourself, and don't let your dreams take the best of you. Don't let your dreams run away with you.
And what do you think of that statement now?
I mean, I do think that there's, I do believe it's true. You got to stay true to yourself. You know, um, don't lie to yourself about what you want. I think the truck driving, for example, I probably stayed in it a little longer than I should have, even though it was only 2 years. But you know, the reason I stayed in it was because I was comfortable, mainly because of the money. But was it something for the longer term? Absolutely not. And the reason I kept pushing it away was, because I didn't want to lose my paycheck. So when that finally happened, I kind of stepped into the unknown, stepped into some uncertainty, but I did grow because of it. And, I think that definitely getting into that uncomfortable means that you're growing. And that is something I gonna have to keep reminding myself of. Like, you can't sit still. You got to keep moving forward.
So as you think of that mission, which path do you want to pursue? The path of realism or the path of being unrealistic?
Hmm. That's a good question. If you go for realism, you might settle. If you go for unrealistic, you might bump into certain things, but in the end, you'll be happier on the other side.
And if we come back to a place of choice, what will you choose?
That's a good question, honestly. You know, because going for the unrealistic means that you might fall, but at least you learn and you grow because of it. And if you go for the realistic choice, you might not learn, you might not grow. Um, I keep referring back to what I did at the beginning of last year was invest a couple $1,000s into a sales course. Was it all worth it? Probably not. Did I learn from it? Definitely. Um, and did I grow because of that? Absolutely. Because of everything that happened since then. From losing my job to a breakup to, getting stronger on the other side and, learning from it.
So what are you present to in this moment of the conversation?
Sorry, what'd you say?
Yeah, what are you just present to at this point of the conversation?
Uh, I mean, I have some choices to make again. I know that. Again, the first choice is gonna be, there's gonna be some choices to be made when it comes to my job, depending on whether my contract will be extended or not. And that if I get a full-time contract, then I know financially I'm gonna be a little bit more stable. And it might be good to learn, and get to learn a couple of things about myself again. And then see where things go in the long, from there.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like, you see a short-term path here with what's next. And I guess the place that I'm still not entirely certain around is like, what is that greater calling for you?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I notice I'm sort of looking to find the words right now, but yeah.
I can appreciate you finding the words. I'm trying to find my words myself.
Yeah, absolutely. It just I'll put it into the space because it's present for me. The dynamic that you spoke to of like your greatest mission, has included trains and animals, and that hasn't the desire that you've had to have that in your life. It hasn't manifested as you've wanted it to, and um and so just again, if you stay on that path towards including those elements in your life for the long term, like what do you really want there? What would really be fulfilling to you?
Hmm. I mean, yeah, it sounds very calm and very general. What I'm just gonna say, but just being able to do with that on a regular basis, you know, to be honest, I have my opinions definitely around the rail system here in North America. I know it's a different continent, different, kind of, different aspects, different, but yeah, so sometimes I thought to myself, if I get a job within the railways, like, maybe I'll be able to help them grow, help them expand. I know there's some developments going on here in my area too around logistics and transportation, which will definitely be interesting. And, when it comes to the agriculture and animals, like, I've had a job in there for 2 years and it didn't really work out for me. For one, because there were just things that were happening that I didn't stand behind on. Right now, the volunteering is something I do enjoy and stand behind because, it's, I enjoy it too. But yeah, I do think transportation and logistics is going to be my long-term focus. Now it's just a matter of finding that job in there, to start with, and see how I'll be able to grow in there, basically.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for speaking to it. And this has been a theme of my conversations today, but my experience of you is that, again, you are connected to vision and possibility, and there's been experiences that have occurred that can disconnect you from that at times. Totally a natural thing. And the opportunity here, not just with the railways, but with life, is truly stepping into your power.
Right.
That you don't, the default is to sort of be at effect of the world, right? If I get that job with the railways, or if I can create the financial abundance. And again, these are totally normal things, but the dynamic or the energy that I would put to you is really stepping forward and calling yourself forward, choosing the path that you see, and being unwavering in it, being unwavering in the energy that you generate. Kind of wordy, but I would invite you to just sit with that for a moment. Who does Jan have to be to create the world that he wants?
Right. I mean, I definitely need to change in a lot of ways. I know that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, stepping into my power, definitely. Yeah. I've been looking for it for quite some time, I can tell you that much. Definitely after what happened to me last year.
Sounds like that experience took away from your power.
It did, yes. It did. And I learned from it. I learned what not to do and what's a better thing that I can do. Again, I had to fall to learn, which is just a natural part of life. Wasn't easy, but it was. I did learn from it. That's for sure.
Well, and you spoke to, like, yeah, in order for me to step into that creation, to create the world that I want, that there's going to be some work. And what's already true? What do you already know is true about you, about the qualities that you bring to the world, that can be a catalyst for creation?
Do you want me to list up a bunch of qualities right now that I have, or just to clarify?
You can do what you want, but really connect to the ones that are meaningful for you.
I know I'm reliable. You know, as a side note, the taxi driving that I'm doing, my boss loves me because I'm reliable as hell. You know, I'm friendly. You know, always get things done. You know, I think the main challenges that I still have are the, you know, becoming more assertive, standing up for myself more. You know, take more initiative, less procrastination.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a couple small things that I, you know, that I think I can work on.
So I hear reliable. I hear the, you know, friendliness, commitment.
Meticulous would be another one.
Mm-hmm. So how does it feel just to be connected to those qualities of who you are?
I mean, I know I'm good at them. And if I can exploit them, you know, I mean, yeah, call it exploit. You know, I know I can be good to other people.
Yeah. So how are you doing now that we've arrived at this point of the conversation?
I mean, I'm pretty relaxed. I mean, you know, it's really that deep thinking. Yeah, I mean, it's I wouldn't say it's something I do on a regular basis. Um, it's a little hard to explain, you know. I mean, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think really one of the things that's happening right now is my mind's just going 100 miles an hour.
What is that telling you?
Well, it tells me it's, you know, that it's thinking about, you know, about my future, about what I want, and you know, something I can indeed find my fulfillment in long term, and also, you know, how that will trickle down in other aspects of my life. Being happy in your life will also be, will trickle down into, that will show into that will show for other people, which could also show to, a young lady who might want to join me in that. So
Yeah. It feels like this conversation is really an opening, of the deeper reflection, because it can be easy to get, really just easy, and I would say also pretty natural for us to just sort of focus on the immediate, right? Like the career that generates income, or taking care of the things that are in front of us in the moment. And the cool thing about a conversation like this is that it really does open the space up for some of these deeper elements, right? Like getting in tune with your mission, your calling, and really understanding what a meaningful life would be.
mhm.
And then getting that understanding of who do you have to be to really generate those things, to really generate the meaningful life.
Right.
So, great work, as a first step towards that. Are there any practices or awarenesses that you'd like to take on from this conversation, um, that will support you going forward?
I mean, one of the things I already do, every morning is meditation. That helps me a lot to get centered for the day. I mean, there's, the takeaways that I have at the moment are, I have some decisions to make, some decisions that are coming up again that will determine, okay, where am I gonna be working on for the next several years, or maybe even the next couple decades.
Right. And what would be supportive to help you make those decisions?
Whew. Um, Honestly, I can't think of an answer about that right now.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
The word that comes to mind is clarity, but I have to create that clarity myself. Nobody else can do that for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what does that mean to you to come from a place of clarity to make decisions?
I think it'll help me to, determine what my next step is going to be. But I think that also might be, looking for that clarity might mean, that I'm trying to find something that is not yet there in order to prevent myself from falling again, which I
Mm,
know is unpreventable because, you gotta fall in order to learn. And if you have clarity about, what you want, then you might be able to just do it without falling, which is not the challenge.
right. So yeah, it sounds like then the clarity really could be from a place of like spaciousness, where um, you're really looking at what is the best decision for long term, for your growth,
Right.
as opposed to like, what's the short term decision or the immediate need. That's a that's a that's a call forward in itself, right? To actually make these decisions from a place of longevity as opposed to like the immediate need.
Right.
Okay, cool. Are you open to another practice that I see for you?
Sure.
So kind of like we have touched on, and well, there's actually two practices I see for you. The first one is around this aspect of possibility, and the place that I would invite you to is starting to really map out like what is the life that you want to create without any barriers in the way. So no past experiences or how job applications have gone, just simply getting clear on the vision of life that you want, full
Yeah.
stop. So that's a practice that I would give you, is
Mm-hmm.
just journaling or noting down like if I could just have what I wanted in life without being realistic or pragmatic, what would that look like?
Mm-hmm.
That's the first practice I would give you.
Right.
And then the second practice I'd give you is almost looking at creating your mission statement or your life purpose in a sentence or two. So sitting with, when I look at the life that I want to create over the next 40 to 50 years or longer, hopefully longer, um, what would be meaningful for me? Because, I hear it in terms of like the work that you would want to do on the railways, and it's still unclear at this point. And so starting to really get aligned with, if I had a top of the mountain mission in the world, what could that be?
Right.
You open to that? You open to
Yes.
both of those practices?
Yes, I am. Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to downplay it, but that vision board morning formula that I'm doing, it's kind of already touching, what you just said, like,
Mm-hmm.
dreaming without barriers, like, having that vision pretty clearly, like, what do I want to do? Especially the things I want to create also. But I might, I think I do still have room to expand on that, like, getting even more clear on what that looks like, not just like with a house or with, a train layout or that kind of stuff, or, even when it comes to like, marriage and relationships, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thanks for pointing that out. And I am aware of the morning formula as well. And really the practice could simply be going back to that document and looking at the areas where you've been realistic,
Okay.
the areas where, you've taken the safe route as opposed to like really challenging yourself. So maybe, and that's, if you feel like that vision has been mapped out, that just might be the place to look, is like, where can you really push yourself?
Okay.
Awesome. Any questions at this point, or anything, just in your space that you want to speak to before we start to wind down?
Um, no, I think we touched on a lot of things here. Some things were mentioned before, by other people I talked to. But I think too, like one of the things that I definitely, need to keep in mind for myself is like, keep thinking about these deeper questions, and don't just, give time for yourself to think about it without, just brushing it away and going, just going about your day. Don't live like a robot, basically.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's sort of the deeper element of living, really, for those of us that are sort of on this path of growth, is that giving yourself that time and space to be with those deeper questions, those deeper things that are coming up. So it's a great place to look. Anything missing, disempowering, or incomplete in our conversation?
I don't think so. Yeah, again, like I said, I'm still learning. Um, when it comes to the relationship side of things, I restarted reading the book 3% Man by Corey Wayne, which will hopefully help me also in that aspect of life. But I think one of the things too in that aspect too would be like, not just read on it, but applying it in practice. I think, with really at this point, I've done coaching, I've done, reading. I think then really for me, the step right now is to apply everything and put it into practice, not just read about it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a huge part of this, right? Is that we could receive all the coaching in the world, read all the books, and it just stays as information.
Right.
And so there's a big element to taking the steps forward. And yeah, I hear you. I hear you in terms of putting into application what you've been learning. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's come back off of the cameras here. And I'd like to give you some acknowledgement, just for this conversation. Is there anything that you'd like to be acknowledged for?
Well, I appreciate you, and your time and, the effort that you put into this. In some ways reiterating what I needed to hear again, and I need to keep reminding myself of that. And, also, again, pushing me to, keep thinking big and, really step into the mission. I think that's a huge thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I really want to acknowledge you, one, for just being willing to be open in the conversation and really just sharing yourself, sharing who you are and, some of the areas that feel less than and that type of thing, because that's really bold. That's courageous in itself. And I really want to acknowledge you for being a man that, has had to really like work hard to create what you've created to this point, and taking those steps, needed to create life as it has been to this point. It's it definitely can, life can have challenges, life can have setbacks and things that get thrown in front of us. And what I really acknowledge you for is like, you've taken those setbacks, those frustrations, those hurdles, and you were working powerfully with them. And the beauty of it is like, the next step here for you is to really lean into possibility, to lean into the creation and the abilities, the greatness that you have, to really push the edges of what is possible in your life. So I really acknowledge you for that, because most people are not having these conversations. Most people are not putting themselves, out on the limelight, willing to be challenged, and really looking at some of these deeper elements, these places that most people wouldn't look. So I really, really want to acknowledge you for that. Great work.
Thank you.
And before we end the live stream for now, anything you just want to share about the coaching experience? Anything that you liked, you didn't like? Would love to hear.
I mean, again, I appreciate being given the opportunity to, tell my story. One of the things I want to say to all of you, all of our viewers, is, lean into challenge. Don't be afraid to fail. I'd say last year for me was a roller coaster, but again, I've learned a lot. And, am I there? Absolutely not. But yeah, I mean, don't be afraid, and, keep pushing forward, even though life can throw a curveball at you. And believe in yourself. And, that is something I need to keep reminding myself of every day. The mindset for growth. The coaching from you, Andrew, appreciate that too. You know, I'd say to everyone, to our viewers too, like, don't be afraid to reach out to someone. Community is very important to every one of us, and, keep talking to each other, learn from each other, and be there for each other, support.
Hmm. Great words. Thank you. Yeah, for folks that end up catching this on the replay, feel free to share any comments, any questions that you have, and I'll be sure to answer them there for you guys. Thanks again, Jan. It was great here. I'll just get you to stay on for a few minutes after we end here. And yeah, for everybody else, have a great rest of your day, and talk to you soon. Bye for now.